During the American Revolution, about 1 in 5 Americans were loyal to the British. These loyalists were persecuted by revolutionary patriots, such as burning their houses and farms. After the Treaty of Paris was signed, about 80,000 to 100,000 Loyalists had to leave America. Some went to England or another British colony. The British offered land to farm to the Loyalists in Quebec, Nova Scotia, the island of St. John, what is now Ontario, and about 30,000 settled in Cape Breton, St. John, and the St. John River Valley. During the American Revolution, there were approximately 500,000 African Americans in the 13 colonies, many of which were slaves, who worked on the plantations in the South. A lot of men who signed the Declaration of Independence were slave owners. The British offered freedom to these slaves in the 13 colonies in hopes to ruin the economy of the southern plantations. There were an estimated 10,000 slaves who migrated to the British lines, many of which became soldiers, cooks, laborers, or nurses. When the war ended, approximately 3,000 black loyalists went back to Nova Scotia. The First Nations were yet to choose a side, though. The Americans wanted the First Nations land, and the First Nations had good relationships with the British and the Mohawk leader Joseph Brant. The Council of Haudenosaunee tribes still chose to keep their neutral position through these reasons, but Joseph Brant disagreed. During the war, Brant led the Mohawks and the Loyalist fighters against the rebels. When Britain lost the war and the Treaty of Paris was signed in 1783, America and the British were not a part of the same nation, and North America was divided. These negotiations involved in creating the treaty ignored First Nations, who now felt betrayed. Brant argued that the Haudenosaunee had been friends and supporters of Britain for many years, and deserved more in return. After Brant's argument, Britain's government decided to give the Haudenosaunee land along the Grand River in southern Ontario, near present-day Vanford. In the War of 1812, however, Americans would win, and the British would not be. That was great and all, but there were problems in Canada too. French-speaking Canadians didn't like the British rule and wanted to be governed separately from the Loyalists. Thus, the British made the Constitutional Act dividing Quebec, Lower Canada, the heartland of French culture, Catholic religion and language, and Upper Canada, which consisted of the Loyalists and English and Protestants. However, Quebec would not become part of Canada until 1867, when the Dominion of Canada would be formed. The Americans influenced what Canada is today, whether we liked it or not. The end.